Yes, we are live. Welcome to another episode of the Rainey and Roe Show. I am Rolam. That is Kayla Rainey. And we are back again with KS Garner.
Yeah.
Super happy to have her back.
Part two.
She's a part two. She was here last week. If you missed last week, go back and see what we talked about
Yeah.
last week, because this week we're just going to be continuing that conversation. Um, And I skipped over your part, Kayla Rainey.
I was actually super excited that you did. I was really hoping you were going to skip over the whole thing. Like you were just going to forget to ask me
No,
what's
no, we
inspired
gotta tell
you, like all of that.
we have to tell them what kind of podcast we have here. What do we have here?
We are a podcast for the professionally curious and the creative minded.
Yes, yes, yes. And like I said, this is part two. We're going to continue our conversation about urban fantasy writing and character development, particularly with women. But before we do that, we want to talk about what is inspiring us from our week. Kayla Rainey, talk to us.
Pass. That is my week. Pass.
I didn't know that was an option. I didn't know it was an option. I didn't know it was an option.
No. Okay. I don't know if it's inspiring me, but it is something that was a funny moment earlier today. I have, for those of you who don't follow me on Instagram, you may or may not know that I have this giant white shepherd named Ranger, who is like my bundle of love and joy. And he's this big, dumb dog that is just like super goofy looking, and it has been many years of navigating his antics, but he's obsessed with, yes, Addison is very well acquainted with Ranger. He is beloved amongst my clients. He often makes appearances during video chats. Uh, but he's obsessed with small animals. His best friend is a cat that my husband rescued like 2 years ago. And so he really believes that he is a much smaller dog than he is. He's about 100 pounds. He's like a big boy. And he like roughhouses with this cat. They have a great relationship. But we have a lot of stray cats that live in our neighborhood. And it just kills him that he can't play with these cats. Today, he finally caught one of the stray cats.
Oh no.
Yes. At first, I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I am going to be stuck with so many vet bills because I'm going to have to rescue some poor cat and take it to the vet. But I come out and he's got this little, like, kitten. It couldn't have been older than 10 or 11 weeks. And he's, like, bouncing around it, like, play with me, play with me. Just fucking play with me. And it was a whole ordeal, but finally I managed to separate him from what he desperately wanted to be his new best friend. And it was just this little moment of like reminding me as I reintegrate back into society not to be too aggressive with my friendship. So that is my life lesson
I was not expecting
for
that.
the day.
Yep.
Yes. As I start socializing again, don't pull a ranger and just like step on top of people and be like, be my friend.
Right, right. That's great. Okay.
So there you go.
Everyone. Lesson learned for everyone. How about you,
Yeah.
KS?
For me, um, what has inspired me this week, is following through on the things that interest me, um,
Yeah.
and the commitments that I've made not only to other people but to myself. So, say, who was it? Friday of last week, there was like this Pokemon event, and I haven't been into Pokemon since I was probably like 11 years old, but I still have interest in it. I still have the marbles are literally sitting right here that I have. It's
Yes.
like vintage. At this point, it's like vintage. Oh, it's probably worth some money. Um, and I was a little intimidated because, like I said, I haven't been in it in years, and I went anyway because I knew that I was gonna regret it if I didn't go, which happens a lot of the time. Especially I was going by myself, and again, that's a part of what else I do with the Solo Nerd podcast. It's
Yeah, yeah.
me doing things by myself because I really don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't want to wait on other people to decide if they want to go or not. So I went, and I mean, it was okay, but I was still glad that I went because I knew I would regret it if I didn't. And then before we got started, I told you all about how, if you all recall from last week, I don't know if I actually said it on camera, but one of my biggest regrets in high school is not pursuing theater. And it's something that I've carried with me pretty much to this day. So a big reason why I work in entertainment is to kind of work my way to that and to getting into theater. So like I'm a game master and I try to do like improv with that and performing, getting used to being on camera, and talking to people about things. Um, I may be in a music video. I don't know. It hasn't come out yet.
Okay.
Exciting. Yeah.
Titi, the artist, she's like a local musician here, music producer, club producer here. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to actually be in it, but I have been rehearsing throughout the week, and I actually recorded some monologues for an acting reel just to have prepared when they do ask for it.
Right.
So, like I said, just following through on commitments and things that I'm interested in, because I know I'm going to end up regretting it.
Yeah.
If I don't do it.
Dope. That's
Love
dope.
it.
I like what you said last week too about preparation meeting opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. Yeah. So for me, so today the Kickstarter money hit, so that was inspiring.
Hey.
What did you say? What hit you?
Indie Crete. What hit you?
Oh, the Kickstarter money, the money from the Kickstarter that I raised.
Oh, okay.
Kayla looks disappointed. She's like, I was really hoping somebody like actually decked you in the face and there's some kind of lesson behind this. Ro got in a public fight over the new Wakanda Forever movie. That's actually what he's trying to tell us.
That's actually, that could be true. Like that's like a thing that could happen. People are so upset about it. But no, so I'm super excited about, just getting ready to start ordering things and printing things and paying my artists and doing all those things. So I'm just, that was super huge today. Also, I've been talking about this for like a week now, but like I've been wrestling with like this whole social media and Instagram moving from pictures to reels and videos. And I'm just like, first of all, I don't want to do social media. I just want to write. But I realized that a part of the job is promoting yourself and using the different avenues that you have to do that. Right. So
just tools.
I think I've just been doing some more like reading and just listening to like how people are using reels and using Instagram and using social media. And I'm realizing like it's not just one way, right? You don't have to do it the way you're seeing so-and-so do it or that person do it. You got to figure out what's authentic about yourself and use it that way. And so I think I'm coming into a good space of figuring out what's going to be authentic for me on social media, on Instagram and these different platforms. So I'm excited to, jump into that sphere and continue to grow or try to grow, in that area. So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with it. Does anybody else have any other things they would like to share that's inspiring?
KS is going to slay this transfer to Reels instead of still pictures on Instagram. She's ready. She's like, bring the cameras. I got this.
Right.
To be honest, as you were talking about, Ro, I guess you're struggling to what you post and what do you put up on social media. And I'm trying really, really hard to not do duets or stitches on TikTok. I mean, they're trying to be TikTok anyway. Is for like the last couple of days, almost like a week now, I've been watching. I don't know about the rest of you, but I love like the pimple videos.
Oh my god!
No. And the dermatologist popping the whiteheads. I've been looking at videos. I'm up until like 11 o'clock at night looking at these videos. And I'm
my god!
I'm like, yes, pull that hair. Get
You are not the only one.
Addison, you know what I'm talking about. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm this close to start doing like duets and just
Oh my
reaction
god.
videos
No,
to
no.
people. But it's
I'm
like, yes,
unfollowing you
my
right
go
now.
pop it,
I'm
pop
unfollowing
it.
you right now.
The bigger the blackhead, the better. And I like how they dig into it and they think it's a
Oh my
blackhead because
god.
of your hair. Oh yeah.
That makes me like want to throw up in my mouth.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, yes.
Oh my
The video.
god! I can't believe this that people
Y'all
are
are
so
wild.
excited
Y'all are
about
wild.
it.
Yes.
Y'all are different.
Yes!
Y'all are built different.
That's
I'm not.
almost like a love language. I'm like, let me pop it.
Love language. Like yes, I will say when you have been married for long enough, you're like, no, just let me get that for you. You know,
Man,
Like I
that's
know my aunt has one on her nose,
oh
and
man.
I don't know if it's a mole, but it looks like a blackhead on her
And
nose.
you're
It's
just like,
small, and I'm like every time I see it, I'm like, look, let me get it, let me get that real
just,
fast. Let me
I
get it. She's
got
like,
you.
no, can't wait to do it. And I was like, please, please.
No. Oh, I
wow.
can't
So
do
Well,
yeah, I'm
it.
like,
well,
I'm
moving
like
right
this
along.
close to posting duet.
I'm watching our viewer count go down slowly but surely.
Moving right along.
Sorry.
Wow. So
So yeah,
seriously,
I'm trying to think of like a weird video rabbit hole that I go down to, like something that's super gross, but I can't think of anything other than like really bloody tattoo videos. I do find a lot of satisfaction in that. Like tattoo videos where like they're laying in like really heavy blacks and they wipe it away and it's all like plasma and pus. I love that, but I think it just reminds me of the good old days.
yeah, I agree. I don't. The only like rabbit holes I go down, are, like if I see a video, like for example, did y'all hear about the pastor that got robbed in his church?
No, what?
Yo, yo, let me tell y'all something. The
Mhm.
pastor is literally in the pulpit preaching,
Oh my
and
God.
masked gunmen come in, lay him down.
What?
First of all, he had on like, according to the reports, he had on a $400,000 chain on.
Jesus.
They come in, they lay him down. So he says they took the chain, they patted him down. He had more chains on. So they took those chains. Apparently, they got like $1 million worth of jewelry. Anyways,
What?
so I saw that video, and then I saw like I started going down the rabbit hole of like I want to know the entire story. So I see like a live that he did talking about what happened, and then I
Oh
see
my
another live
God.
that he jumped on, and he was like cussing these people out. So I watched that. It was like a good like 4 hours of me just like researching
Oh
the
my
entire
God.
story.
Where did you find 4 hours to do this?
I don't know. I don't know where they put them, but I had them. I was like deep into this. It was crazy. It was crazy. Okay. Moving right along. Let's get into our topic. Um, Kayla, do you want to start with your question?
Yeah. So I just want to do for those of you that weren't here last week or haven't gotten a chance to watch that video, we sort of yes.
It is. It is.
For Addison and I, it's gnomes. That's our rabbit hole thing. Garden gnomes. Um, which is such a silly, weird thing to do. But anyway, so I just want to kind of like recap where we ended off last week, which, if you guys are correct from our little pre-show gathering, we had sort of been talking about character development and using personal experiences to further your world building and sort of your character building through your narratives. And something that I was really intrigued by last week was you had mentioned this idea of mental health being like a part of that mixture in there somewhere. So I kind of wanted to continue in the theme of rabbit holes. Like let's dive in. Let's talk about that.
Well, how mental health is involved in anything. It's just something that I'm interested in exploring and talking about more openly with people, women, men, uh people who are disabled, people who are queer or identify as queer, people who may be experiencing homelessness or moving
Mhm.
around a lot, or who are immigrants or children of immigrants, whatever it may be. Um, yeah, like I know I have someone I'm supposed to be speaking with in like probably another couple of weeks who's like legally blind. So I
Mhm.
want to talk to them about how that integrates into their work,
Yeah.
and just putting a spotlight more on it and how it affects people differently and how they manage it differently. So one of the more popular episodes that I've done on my podcast is the mental health benefits of gaming, which a lot of people like, and how
Yeah.
gaming relates to mental health and how people manage it. Like I said before, they may play a violent video game or something that's action packed because just try to de-stress from the workday, or because maybe
Mhm.
they're feeling angry or whatever it may be, or play something like Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley because they're experiencing some type of anxiety,
Mhm.
and there is no real goals in those games. It's kind of just like you do whatever you want to do. Um, yeah, it's just something that I have dealt with myself. Someone who like is in and out of therapy, who's dealt with anxiety and depression pretty much throughout my whole entire adolescence into adulthood. So I try to use my platform as a way to again spotlight that, and how I guess to talk with other people about how they deal with it. Not even
Mhm.
as artists, just as a person.
Mhm.
You know, so
Go ahead, Ro.
Well, I think you mentioned like going to therapy and dealing with mental health. I'm wondering what your perspective is, as especially like when we think about the Black community.
Yeah.
For me, I grew up in a strict Christian household,
Mhm.
and I'm not gonna say that therapy wasn't encouraged, but it wasn't. We didn't talk about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was a some. You bite down and you get through it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I wonder, do you have you experienced that in your community? Like, what has it been like dealing with mental health and whether or not you should go to therapy in your community? Have you experienced any pushback?
um I've never experienced any pushback. It wasn't, let me see, how do I frame this? It wasn't discouraged, but again, you didn't hear anybody ever talking about it.
Right,
Yeah.
And
right,
it's always viewed as a bad thing in a
right.
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
So in my case, it was more of like, of an outlet. Speaking with someone who I'm not related to, someone who doesn't know who I am, so they
Right.
can't really judge me based off anything that they don't know unless I tell them.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became more of a managing thing in
Mhm.
learning how to express my emotions in a healthy manner and dealing with them. And your feelings are valid, but how you react to things may not be.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
learning how to deal
Yeah.
with that, and learning how to see how people where people are coming from their perspective, and not just seeing from your own in a way. So in my writing, what I like to write is um like exploring people's humanities, like how do they, like complicated characters, like maybe a character that's abusive, like how did they become that way, or a character that is abused, how did they become like that, um what did we speak up the last time about, like strong female characters, I think
Mm-hmm.
is what we spoke about. And right,
Yeah.
Rainy, I think we spoke about that, we touched on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you kind of just have to just write the character in a way.
Right.
So
Right.
not just focus on the fact that, oh, this may be a damsel in distress, or this
Yeah.
character might be promiscuous, or
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
character may be viewed as strong. And
Mhm.
you just kind of just have to write them as people in a
Mm.
Right.
way.
As like multidimensional, like you said, like people that have layers and complexities and nuances.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I try to focus on when I write characters. I mean, how they look and where they come from and like their
Mhm.
background and stuff like that. They kind of tell me that in a way.
Yeah.
Other than
Interesting.
that, like I said, I try to explore their humanities is what I'm
Yeah.
interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel like character development is essential to pushing your narrative forward? Like, is that tied directly to like the story is not successful if the characters aren't going through these sort of like psychological developments where you're writing these characters that have all of these complexities and from what it sounds like, some type of psychological aspect, whether that's trauma or coping or grief, and do you find that that ties into the direction that your story takes?
I don't write them with the intention of having
Mm-hmm.
trauma and grief and things like that. I kind
Mm-hmm.
of just write this scene as it comes in a
Mm-hmm.
way.
Yeah.
So, because when I
Yeah.
think about things too much, then I get stuck on it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, um, you know, in Unholy with Misty Calloway, she grew up with like her grandmother pretty much raised her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, she didn't have a father, and she has issues with her mother. Um, how that came to be is just something that um I guess what would be the word progresses like organically in a way. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know
Mm-hmm.
how, like, why did she not have a mother and a father? Well,
Right.
I don't
Right.
know, but she'll
Yeah.
explain it at some point if someone asks her or if the opportunity comes up. Who is this guy Axel and why is he like such an ass? Well, I don't know. Well, it'll come up eventually, right?
Yeah.
I'm writing another story, the same thing where the girl has an issue with her mother, but like she has to. It's a clause in her father's will that she has to go to therapy with her mother before she can inherit any of his
Oof.
his insurance money after he dies.
Yeah.
So she's gonna have to, revisit this trauma and you know, uh, confront her, I guess, her grief with her father who is currently dying that
Mm-hmm.
she's been like avoiding for the longest time. I didn't write the story with that intention.
Yeah.
It's just something that came naturally, and I was like, I want to explore this more. And again,
Yeah.
I was actually currently at that time attending therapy, so putting my characters in therapy as well, again, just came naturally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like that's the scary thing about art and writing is that you like you ask the question, well, I don't know why, she's doing that or why her life is like that. And a lot of times, if you really look at it, it's something about your life
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
made you do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so what's interesting is like even like in my writing, Rainey will ask me or tell me things about like she'll say, I'm getting to know you better as
Yeah.
I'm working on your story. And I'm like, and then she'll begin to tell me things, and I'm like, I didn't even see that there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's me. And I didn't even mean to put that, and
Yeah.
that's it's scary. It's like it makes me almost not want to put myself on the page. Like I realize like anytime I write something, whether I know it or not, I'm putting myself on the page. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
that's a scary thing.
I don't think you can avoid that though. Like I think that as somebody who is a visual artist and also dabbles in like fiction writing and poetry and prose, like I think that no matter exactly like no matter what you do, part of yourself is going to find its way into what you're creating. There is no way to really separate that. And we've kind of talked about that before where the process of creating is like a reductive process, right? It's sort
Mhm.
of like an archaeological dig where as you take away layer by layer, you start discovering more and more about the story, the character, the narrative that you're creating, whether that's and it unveils a little bit about like what's happening either in your life or it's unveiling things that you haven't come to terms with in your past or it's revealing anxieties like I think that that's one of the most incredible things about storytelling, right? Is like you get those glimpses into the people that are writing them. And like one of the reasons I'm so fascinated by character development is exactly for that reason. Like those parallels between you and those characters that you're building, that is like unbelievable to me, you know?
It's kind of like it's something that you in reality are uncomfortable with dealing with, but then
Yes.
you put it on the page and you make it,
Yes.
these characters are going through it, not me, but it actually is
Yeah.
that's going through
Right, right. Yeah. That was, I don't know if you're familiar with my past work, Kayla, but I used to be known as Beatrice and the Beast, and it's this like cast of anthropomorphic characters. So there's like a wolf and a fox and like a panther, and they all sort of have these different forms that they come in, like, like a dark priest, like a prince, an archer. And I remember at the time, like, I very intentionally designed those characters in that story to be kind of an alternate reality where
it.
I could work through the things that I just like could not cope with in my life at the time. It was so it was so heavy that I needed the escapism of
Mhm.
creating that. And the same escapism that you find from reading, I found in creating. And I think a lot of creators approach their work that way. And it's like a painful catharsis. I
Mhm.
don't know any other way to like describe that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, KS, let me ask you this: Have you found a pattern between, like, when you have an idea, right, for a story, and you might have an idea and you say, I don't really want to do that one, right? And then you have an idea and you say, oh, I really want to write this one, right? Have you found a pattern between like those ideas that you're drawn to?
Let's see. I have another story in mind now, even though I'm slowly writing the third book.
Know about
That's like it's another fantasy one. It's more of like a magical type with like I don't know if I want them to be like young witches or maybe older. I like the idea of them being older, like middle age.
Yes.
Um, but I don't know if y'all remember, in February it was 2/2/22 on Tuesday, and everybody
Yes, yes.
and being from Baltimore, that was like our day, like our
it.
time to shine,
Yeah.
right? So and how we pronounce two is like TEW.
Yeah.
So
No.
Cute.
and I thought, and it's something that came to mind. So backstory with that is that Drake, the rapper, his album that just came out, it was very like club inspired,
Yeah.
and it had a lot of Baltimore club influences on there, and a lot of the local musicians here were kind of upset. They was like, "Oh, I could have
Mm,
did that," and then there was
yeah.
a local producer who was like, "Oh, well, why didn't you do it then?" You
Right,
know,
right,
Right.
right.
so
Right.
I was like, you know what, he's absolutely right. So why not capitalize on that? And the title is what came to my mind first, which would be Tews, TEWS. And then it from there it became about a girl that's gone missing and her name is Tuesday. So it'd be Tews, and that's how she goes, the nickname she goes by. Like I said, I don't know if it was a young girl or someone who's older that goes missing. And then I was like, oh, let's play off more of the days of the week. So we know Wednesday. So I was thinking of doing that maybe. It would be Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Lament, and then um something with Sunday. I forgot what that would be. And then um it wouldn't be Monday, it would be money. So MUNNY. So yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do with that. I really want to write it. I just don't know how to get started on it. But I'm afraid if I start it, I won't start the thing I'm supposed to be doing. So there isn't a pattern. It's just more of what just comes to mind.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm taking notes on it as it comes. But like I said, I just have like other things that I need to be prioritizing, you know,
Yeah.
Right.
that I'm not, you know.
I think we are all there. We're all like, oh, look, shiny new projects. I wanna play.
Yeah, and yeah, so I mean, there's another thing that I wrote before I wrote the Unholy series. I was watching a lot of the Star Trek movies.
Yeah.
So I wrote like 6 chapters of that. And they were like these people who wanted to bring back organic plants. So they found like a real seed.
Yeah.
But like it's illegal because everything is artificial now. So they're like they were captured at one point and then they were broken out and then now they're in hiding and that's where it ended. And I need to go back into it, you know. And then I'm still reading a bunch of fan fiction, so I want to write fan fiction. I'm like, no. Like
You know,
again, I wrote like 6 chapters and I haven't touched it since.
yeah.
So
I think the reason why I asked that question is just because, like, when I talk to writers, something that's interesting is that there will be this almost like this through line that
Mhm.
goes through every
Mhm.
single thing that they write. And it can be different things that they write,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's this thing that just seems to keep popping up. And I think it goes back to who you are as a person and what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
So, like, for
Yeah.
me, a lot of the things that I write about have to do with fatherhood. They have to do with,
Yeah.
these traditional, like the passing down of the torch and those type of
Yeah.
things. And even
Generational
like
trauma.
when I'm watching TV, if it has anything to do with fatherhood, I'm probably gonna cry. Like if it's a father and a son story, if it's a grandfather and a son story, if it's a
Oh.
story, I'm more than likely going to be really emotional about what I'm looking at. And
uh-huh.
so I just think the reason why I ask that is because I feel like that is something that when writers figure that out and they can name it, that becomes a really dangerous thing for writers to really be able to explore and deal with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so when you put it like that, I think my pattern is the reluctant hero.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
for me, I think mine is like that because in my life I am um the firstborn child and I'm
Mhm.
a daughter. So
Mhm.
a lot of responsibility was put on me at an early age.
Yeah.
Um and I didn't want it, but I kind of like had to take on that role. And I feel like pretty much all my life I feel like I have like responsibility written on my forehead. Like I'm always given so much responsibility and
Yeah.
people always come to me with stuff and I'm like, why? Like and people like entrust me with stuff. I'm like, me? So I'm like, I didn't realize like people depended on me that much. But
Yeah.
so again, it's just like the reluctant hero. Like she's this character, and she's just kind of like going about her day, and she gets thrown all this responsibility. Gets thrown into her lap, and what does she do with it? I mean, she tries her best, and eventually she ends up gaining a bunch of people's trust, even though she feels like she doesn't deserve it, or she doesn't understand what she did to deserve it. So that I think that's what my
Yeah.
path is.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I want to think about what my pattern is now. I have to do some self-examination there. I'm a little afraid too, honestly. If it's anything what I like to read, I don't know if I want to look too closely at what that means about me.
I want to know now too.
I know. This is what next week I'll come back and let you guys know what my pattern probably is. Probably something about morally gray storylines, because that seems to be what I gravitate towards as a reader a lot, the sort of like battle between dark and light. Like that's
Mhm.
something that I enjoy reading, And when I think about it, a lot of my writing tends to kind of like inch that way. Like my writing's pretty dark. A lot of my like fine artwork is super, super dark. Um, and based around pretty closely to those themes. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's my through line.
Nice.
Maybe I
We'll,
just have
we'll,
lots of
we'll like really
secrets.
nail it down by next week. I'm gonna keep asking you.
Have you thought about it? Do you know yet?
Yes. So Rainey, do you have a last question for KS before we wrap up?
Hmm. Hmm. I don't
We
know.
could, we could talk to
I
her. We could
I
talk to
know
her
forever,
all
forever. Like that's the
night.
thing. That is the thing. If I had like 2 more hours, I have lots of more
Oh,
questions.
there's something else that I wanted to touch on. So after our
Yes.
panel, there was a person that we didn't get to, and they ended up messaging me on Instagram about cover art and cover
Yeah.
like titles. So the advice that I gave them was what was told to me was like alliteration. So mine is unholy, unbroken, and unleashed, right?
Yeah.
And then row yours is Scarlet Ranger and it has numbers on there as well.
Hmm.
You know, part one,
Hmm.
part two, inheritance. And then I guess from your perspective, Rainey, you've done covers and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was my advice about stuff like that. And then look to who you like to read, what their
Mm,
covers look like as well. I
yeah.
mean, you don't have to emulate it, but like, what is it say like? And then what their titles look like as well. So like, obviously Harry Potter, and it was year 1 through 7. You know,
Hmm.
because it's
Hmm.
school. Um, and then um, what was it? What is those? That's the first thing that comes to my mind. Um, so yeah, what are you guys' advice on book covers and like the titles and the cover art?
Well, I'll let you start with that one.
That's a great question. I think that um I don't know. I don't know. I think first of all, it depends on what you're doing. Are you doing comic books? Are you doing like novels? I
Mhm.
think for me, one of the things that was important for me with Scarlet Ranger was that I wanted to have the logo be something that was recognizable. It's it's big, you know what I'm saying? You
Hmm.
can see it. And like so like when I was at BlurredCon, I would go up to people and I would say, hey, I would introduce myself and they might look at me a little bit and I had my Scarlet Ranger hat on, I would turn it around, they would look like, oh yeah, Scarlet Ranger. The logo was recognizable, right? And so I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
something that's important to go on. I think that's important for book covers as well, like that, the whole branding, right? To be able to,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's this almost like a uniformity thing where when you
A
see it,
consistency.
a
Hmm.
consistency, right? When
Yeah.
you see
Yeah.
it, and even if you look at series, the titles may be different, but you can see that there's a like the Serpent and Dove series, right? Each
Yeah. Yeah.
each cover has a through line or a
Yeah.
consistency to it.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's important. That's something I've tried to do with my Scarlet Ranger series, number one, number two, and then as we do number three, I want there to be a consistency between those. And I think that would be the major thing that I would say. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Well, like I could talk about cover art for a very long time. As Rona is like, I'm super, and this is so fucking nerdy. I am so into cover art. I like doing it. I like looking at it. I like scrolling through Pinterest for hours looking at it. I'm
Me
all about
too.
it. As
Me
Addison
too.
knows, I really could spend literally hours talking about it. The short, like the condensed version of hours of advice. Uh, for comics, I think you can check out my show with Armand Nassim on Submarine Treehouse, making
Plug it.
comic
Plug it.
creators cry. And we will tell you everything you ever wanted to know about comic covers there. That is like what we do. We give constructive critique to comic covers. But what I have learned most consistently, both as the artist of comic covers and as the person who has helped with art direction for them, making sure that you have iconic images that are eye-catching and will draw a shelf browser in is really important. Chaotic, cluttered covers do not do very well in comics. It's if people can't sort of read the visuals of the comic cover within, I think it's like 0.5 seconds, then their brain just like cannot register it and they'll keep walking. So strong, eye-catching compositions and characters work really well. If you're talking about fiction cover art, that's a totally nuanced game there. I mean, there are people who prefer to have covers with character art on it. There are people who really are turned off by characters on the cover because they feel like it messes with their imagining of the characters. There are people who like really stylized covers that have like a bold graphic. Like Sarah J. Maas just re-released the whole Throne of Glass series with this like very graphic style versus the sort of like soft fantasy style covers that she had originally done. And people are like going crazy over it because it's just different from what you normally see in that genre because genres are super cover specific too. And my biggest advice for cover art is spend the money. Spend the money on a good artist to do it because that is the number one thing that I see in Facebook groups with like indie authors, independent authors who are just starting out is they try to self-make covers or they try to like hire super cheap artists off of Fiverr and it can ruin your entire like marketing plan for your book if you don't just put aside the budget. Like start planning a year before that release date to like put just a little bit aside and it is so important to have good cover art. And that's all I'm going to say because otherwise I really will. I'll keep going on and on and on and on.
Yeah, I just want to highlight this real quick. I'm not sure how to pronounce her first name, so I'm gonna just call her Mrs. Jacobs. She says, I think it's important to do what you want to do, but it's also important to analyze the market.
Yes.
Unfortunately, a lot of people judge a book by its cover, and that's it. And the
Yes.
reason why I want to highlight this is because this woman has a book coming out October 31st,
Yeah.
and her cover is magnificent.
It's badass. I love it.
For sure. It's amazing. So I just wanted to highlight that because I think she knows what she's talking about. So
So are KS's. Your covers are like fantastic. I really like whoever did your cover art.
Yeah. Rebecca Frank actually did my covers.
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
the first one. And it was for me, I know it may be off-putting for some people, like you said, Rainey, to have people on the cover. But it was
I'm
important
not one
for
of those
me.
people.
But it was important for me for people to know that the protagonist was a dark-skinned black girl.
Yes.
Woman, I
Yes.
should say. This one she has an afro in it, like a little afro puff.
Yeah.
And then this one she has like braids in her
I
hair.
love it. I love it.
So and I just looked towards other urban fantasy covers. They had people on there, and then like a city background.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly Baltimore City. It was just like a regular city, skyline or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to let people know it's set in the city, and then it has a dark skinned black female protagonist.
Mhm.
So,
but what's amazing about those covers though is that they're genre specific. Like if you take
Yeah.
those covers and you put them up next to a bunch of other urban fantasy
Yeah.
books, that's what
There's
they
a
look
consistency there. Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Whereas if you take
Yeah.
Mrs. Jacobs covers and you put them up with epic fantasies,
Yes.
they're gonna
Yes.
feel the same.
Exactly.
But I think like that's what she's saying, like
Yeah.
knowing what's
Knowing your
happening
market.
in the market and what
Mhm.
the trend is,
Yeah.
that gives
Yeah.
you, and but that goes into getting the right artist, like Caleb,
Yes.
like Winnie said, like paying that money to get somebody who has the
Yeah.
experience to know this is what's happening in the market, this is what you want,
Yeah.
this is how we bring those things together. You know what I mean? So with that being said, we're going to get ready to get out of here. I just wanted to thank KS for coming on once again. Before you leave, I do want to say, you talked about people giving you responsibility and people, trusting you with things. And I just want to say the first time I met you in person, I knew that you were a leader. Like I could feel it as soon as I met you. And so I think it makes perfect sense that people trust you and people give you responsibility and people want you to be a part of their thing. So thank you so much for coming on. If you all enjoyed this conversation,
Yeah.
so like, subscribe, and share. Kayla, do you want to say anything?
Keep checking us out. Keep tuning in. Yeah, we got lots of great stuff coming your way. I'm trying really hard not to like swear at the end because I know that I have a terrible like sailor mouth. But
Talk to him. Talk to him.
yeah, fuck yeah, come back. We want to see you next week. We're gonna try and bring KS back on as soon as possible. It has been specifically requested for her to come back. Armand from Submarine Treehouse is already demanding part 3. So
Addison, you are welcome.
yes.
Armand, appreciate you, brother. We are going to get out of here again. Like, subscribe, and share. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next week. We love you.